On today's episode of Locked On Lightning, we got John Chik of Locked On New York Rangers coming on for a special opening night crossover. We talk about the changes both our teams made in the offseason, as well as a preview for tonight's game. All that and more. But first,
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
and welcome to an episode of Locked On Lightning crossover with Locked On New York Rangers. I'm Adam Danker. Alongside me on the crossover episode is John Chik of Locked On New York Rangers. John, what's up, buddy? It's been a long offseason. The last time we spoke was really Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if we recorded after the conclusion of that. I know we had a couple episodes here and there after, probably I think it was like after like 3, and then I think 6 we did an episode, but I don't think we ever did a conclusion. But yeah, how's your summer been? How's the off season been, buddy? Yeah.
It's been great, man. You know, obviously the Rangers didn't get the result, but it was a lot of fun doing a couple crossover episodes with you. And I know as recently as the season before, I had joked that like, oh man, you know, we'll do this when they're playing each other in the conference final, and then it actually happened. So that was really cool, and I know we both had fun with that. And I mean, hey, congratulations to your team on once again making it to the finals there. Yeah, but been a lot of fun, good summer. You know, just keeping tabs on the Rangers and everything that's going on, and obviously, Vincent Trocheck, the big free agent signing that, you know, they made this offseason. Salary cap space is a little bit of a concern, so there was only so much they could do. But, you know, I've always been a fan of Trocheck, just one of those guys with a good all-around game. And, yeah, I think he'll make a nice addition to the Rangers this year.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good place to start. So for all of you, listening on our audio platforms, thank you for doing that. And also watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. So on this episode of Locked On Lightning / Locked On New York Rangers, we'll be discussing, what's changed for the Rangers, what's changed for the Lightning in the offseason, and as well as a preview of the game. So let's start with the Rangers. Yeah. Vincent Trocheck, which, when I saw that move made, I was like, wow, like, that's such like it seems like with the Rangers the last couple of years, they have not really made bad moves. I've seen, since Drury has taken over the reins, there was a lot of talk when that first happened was that, oh, he's going to go big, he's going to make these big contracts, or he's going to really try and make a splash, as soon as he takes the reins, and really you saw him make moves that really I wouldn't have expected someone who has really, gotten the reins of being a GM for the first time. He's making moves that make sense, and it's the move, and they're easy moves. It's not out of the box ideas, and you don't see that a lot in the NHL. And really, what has that been like for someone whose team is, let's face it, no disrespect to the Rangers, but they outperformed their expectations last season, and now this is the season where you're going to really see those expectations arise. What has it been like been for you, for this whole process of seeing this team come together over the last couple of years?
I mean, it's been a tremendous amount of fun. One of the things that I have to mention, because obviously, before this last year, they were down for a little while. I guess they were kind of in the playoff mix 2 years ago, but they never really got that close. They kind of hung around for a little while and were eliminated with a few games to go. The year before that, they didn't even do that. And, it's just been a lot of fun seeing the plan come together, so to speak, because, Adam, we're big sports guys. We're into a lot of different sports. As long as your team has some kind of a plan in place, I think you can kind of buy into it and have fun with it. And even though the Rangers weren't that good before this past year, I still enjoyed watching them because they were so young and it felt like there was a plan in place. We have to get younger. We have to blow this whole thing up, rebuild the whole thing from scratch. They got a little bit of luck when it came to the draft lottery for 2 straight years there. So that was nice. But it's when you have a team that just doesn't seem to have any plan. They just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But to see it all come to fruition, quote unquote, ahead of schedule this past season, that was a ton of fun, man. And it's crazy because, and this is something we talked about too, but the Rangers and Lightning, they both very easily could have been eliminated in the first round this past year. And then we end up feeling completely different about, our team's respective seasons. The Rangers were down 3-1 in the series against Pittsburgh. They were down 2-0 in game 5. The Lightning were in overtime in game 6 against Toronto and having to win that to stay alive. So, yeah, man, it's just a roller coaster, but it's been great. And to your point about Chris Drury, a hiccup or two here and there. The signing of Patrick Nemeth last offseason did not work out at all. I think some people are still mad at him over the Pavel Buchnevich trade, although I've, argued that was due to salary cap concerns. It'd be very difficult to squeeze in Buchnevich right now, the way they're lined up. So for the most part, yeah, I think Drury's done a great job. I'd give him like somewhere in the B+, A- range. Fantastic trade deadline this past season as well. A lot of those guys were just rentals, but they stepped in and played a very important role for this team.
Yeah, as much as you hated to see him kill the Lightning. I think one of the players that I very much enjoyed on the Rangers, in that playoff series was Alex Kopp. I think, yeah, that was a no-brainer trade to be made at that time. And yeah, that goes back to the point before, he's making the moves that make sense, that are easy, that for some reason you don't see some of the other GMs in the league make for whatever reason. But, looking at this roster right now, and I'm looking, if people want to follow along, I'm looking on Daily Faceoff, so it might be a little different, on your end in terms of what you think the lines may be. But I'm looking at that third line, and I was talking about this a little bit on the last episode of Locked On Lightning, previewing it just a little bit. But you and we both spoke about this last year as well. Championships are made and are won by third lines. Now, looking at this Rangers third line with Lafreniere, Hedel, and Goodrow, where do you rank this third line among the other ones in the NHL right now?
It's a little bit hard to say because they've been shuffling the deck quite a bit in this preseason. And on one hand, that's a good thing. You've got 6 preseason games. You might as well experiment, play around, see what works, see who clicks with who, all that good stuff. By that same token, though, I kind of wish they were a little bit more settled because right up through the last game there, they were still kind of moving guys around. And it looked like for a while there that they were going to stick with the kid line as the third line. You would go Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kakko together. And I've kind of been hoping they would bump Kakko and Lafreniere into the top 6 and, give them a chance to essentially just sink or swim there. And on that top line right wing spot that you're looking at there, Adam, because I'm looking at Daily Faceoff as well, they were really rotating a lot of guys in and out. I mean, Vesey was there, Goodrow was there, Sammy Blais was there. I think there's even one other that I might be forgetting about right now. But they end up finally bumping Kakko up there, and he's got 3 goals in his last 2 preseason games. So it looks like he'll start there. And then for the third line, you've basically got the remaining 2 players from the kid line, Lafreniere and Hedel, and now Barclay Goodrow is going to play with them. I think that could work. Barclay Goodrow can do a little bit of the grunt work, dig some pucks out of corners, all that good stuff, set these kids up, these very talented kids to, hopefully score some goals this season. And I think it's a really solid line, but I would imagine that the Rangers are not done mixing and matching as far as the line combinations are concerned. We'll see. Jimmy Vesey for a while was looking like he was going to be on the top 6, and then they just recently put Vitaly Kravtsov back onto the second line. So a lot of moving parts right now. Not always the easiest thing to keep track of, but yeah, man, I do like that third line the way it's set up right now. But we'll see. We'll see how long they stick with it.
Yeah, you mentioned that there was a lot of moving around with the players on this team, and coming from someone who has watched the Lightning basically win 2 cups off of doing that, I take that as kind of a good thing for the person who is rooting for that team, because that means that you have players that can do a lot of things that are almost outplaying the lines that they are on. So that comes very much in hand and comes in handy when injuries start to come into the equation. But and it also comes with players maybe outplaying their expectations and really their potential right there. So really that brings me to my next question. What players on this team do you think are ready to take that next step? Obviously the big 2 names that come to mind for me, at least, and obviously Ranger fans who are and Ranger fans who obviously have been watching these kids play, or maybe even Lightning fans who were able to see a little bit more of a closer glimpse at these players, Capo and Lafreniere. But who are the other players on this team that you're really looking to take that next big step this year?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to look at Kakko and Lafreniere to take that next step, but I think that's kind of obvious. So if I'm going to throw out another name, the first guy that immediately pops into mind for me is Keandre Miller. And I don't know if you saw that clip at him, but, between the Rangers and Lightning last year, they go through the handshake line, and John Cooper was talking to Miller for a little while there, and he's like, "You're a hell of a player, man. Just keep going, keep doing your thing." And he's absolutely right. I mean, Keandre Miller, just 2 years ago, was a surprise addition to the opening night roster. He made the team. I think he was just like 19 or 20 years old. Had a couple of hiccups every now and then. He had a rough opening night that year, but for the most part, man, Keandre Miller's taken to the NHL like a duck to water, and he's been great. has really helped solidify the blue line for the New York Rangers. A very dynamic player. He has some offense to his game. I think we'll see more of that this season as he continues to become more comfortable and continues to, be comfortable with, driving to the net every now and then. We saw that every now and then this past season. He's got great chemistry with Jacob Trouba. Can play on the power play, although I don't think he'll be there to start the season. Can play on the penalty kill. Just a fantastic all-around player and somebody that I think the sky is really the limit for him. And if I want to do like a little bit of an honorable mention here, I'll throw Braden Schneider in there as well. He's somebody that came up for the Rangers to kind of solidify the third pairing this past season. Was just 20 years old when he made his debut, but you're just kind of an old school, big, tough, physical player, kind of in the mold of Jacob Trouba a little bit. He'll drop the gloves if he needs to. And same thing, there's some growing pains with him as a rookie, but I look to him to really solidify the Ranger blue line as far as, the depth is concerned. He'll be out there with Zach Jones, another very young defenseman. But yeah, Braden Schneider, man, when he was drafted by the Rangers, I can remember them saying that he was one of the safest players in the draft. Like maybe he doesn't have the ceiling of some guys, but it's like this dude is going to be a top 4 caliber defenseman in this league for sure. And I'm seeing every reason to believe that. I don't see there being any way that he doesn't go on to have a very nice NHL career for himself.
Yeah, a lot of young guys. You're in a good position up there in New York, where a lot of good guys who are very much still young and still, I think, haven't hit the prime of their career. So,
Yeah.
you guys are in a pretty good position, and it definitely is going to make things for the Lightning a little bit more daunting to get through that Eastern Conference gauntlet in the years coming. Through the playoffs. And in just a little bit, we'll talk about my Lightning as well. But first, let's talk about our sponsor. Let's take a break in the show to talk about today's sponsor, and that is Built Bar. Now, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It'll be a perfect treat where you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them yourself. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you sneak a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Now back to the show. So thank you for joining us back, making us your first listen of the day. Remember to subscribe to the Locked On Rangers and Locked On Lightning YouTube channels, as well as all the social media. You can find the information on, we'll punch in that information at the end. We'll plug in all that stuff. But yeah, the Rangers, they're a team now where I feel like they made a statement, regardless of, whether it was win, lose, or last year in the Eastern Conference Finals against my Lightning. I think even though they were up 2-0, and we all know what happened, the series didn't go the way you Ranger fans want it. I think you still made a statement, and you guys may say that, and I'm trying to be unbiased here, but the Lightning fan might say, well, you know what, you guys just, it wasn't your time, you choked or whatever. But I think you've provided a good groundwork for yourselves going forward, and the Lightning did that as well. I was kind of talking about this at the conclusion of the conference finals last year, that you're kind of starting to see a little bit of a similar path. Not only with a lot of people were making the comparisons with what the Panthers did. They were having a great season, won the President's Trophy, blew it in the playoffs against the Lightning. Lightning did that in 2019 to Columbus after winning the President's Trophy. And then this season, you have the Rangers, a team who's still trying to figure it out a little bit, but has the pieces, kind of, choking in the playoffs to the Lightning. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a similar trajectory as well with New York. But looking at my Lightning, it's weird, John. We're not the top dogs this year. And the first time I've been doing this show in the 4 seasons that we've been doing it, we're not going into a season where it's like we don't have our chest puffed out anymore. It's kind of, we're here licking our wounds. We're kind of just, all right, let's build it back up kind of mentality. And it's weird, hearing that from a team that has so much experience. And you normally hear that from teams that have that are in your position with the Rangers. So some moves being made, not a lot, but you know what? There's still a lot of optimism around this Lightning team.
Yeah.
and yeah, what better test than to go against the guys that we faced in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But so yeah, looking at my Lightning, there's, for me at least, I don't know about you. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to really look at the roster, but I'm very cautiously optimistic about how this season is going to go. The Lightning are starting the season without one of the two guys who are mean a big part to this team, and that is Zach Bogosian and Anthony Cirelli. Not sure how much is that's going to affect this team in the coming weeks. I know there's going to be probably certain situations in which this team is going to miss those guys, but the timetable is November. But as you and I both know, John, a lot could happen in a couple of weeks. So yeah, what have you seen from this Lightning team that has really, over from going from last year to this year? What is something that sticks out to you, at least with the Lightning roster?
Well, for starters, I mean, I still do consider them one of the favorites because, I mean, yeah, they've had a couple of losses, whether it's, the guys that you just mentioned that are going to be out due to injury or a couple of free agent losses. I mean, that core is still intact. Of course, you got Vasilevsky. I still think they'll be a serious threat once, the playoffs roll around. But the one guy that I definitely wanted to ask you about that, they had to let walk in free agency was Andre Palat. He, of course, goes to the New Jersey Devils. And, somebody who, not one of the top superstars on that team, but that guy's been a really solid player for you guys for a long time. Seems to take his game to another level when the playoffs roll around every year. And, again, 2-time Stanley Cup champion with Tampa there. So, I mean, how do you feel about losing him? And is there enough there to kind of replace him?
I'm not going to I'm going to answer your second question first. I'm not entirely sure. I think that it's really going to be a matter of how this team plays. The one thing with the Lightning over the last couple of years is that they've been kind of this chameleon type team where they're able to blend in and play the style of the current situation they're in. Certain times throughout the season, if they're missing Kuch and Stamkos, they'll become a little bit more of a grittier, more team. If you have all your stars in the lineup, you'll see that high flying, what I like to call it. And I know my Locked On NHL co-host Chris Masilli hates when I say this, but more of that greatest show on ice mentality, scoring a lot of goals. So it's going to be curious to see how, what kind of identity this Tampa team chooses. Especially without Palat, because like you said, great in the playoffs. He had a little bit of a setback year. I wouldn't say a setback year, but there were certain times, let's face it, let's be honest here. There was certain times throughout the course of the season last year where you didn't even know he was on the ice. But he came up big in the playoffs, and unfortunately, it was unfortunate to see him walk in free agency. But you know what? He played. He had a hell of a playoff run. He deserved every penny, every cent of the money that he got from New Jersey. And he's really one of those players that, he's not going to be the lifeblood of your team on the ice, of course, especially with all the star power Tampa has. But he's going to be one of those guys that's I kind of look at it. He's going to make the play before the big play to set up the big play. And I think that's what the Lightning are really going to miss most from Andre Palat this season. And I think that's what really, the Devils were kind of looking at. They don't expect him to kind of be that star player to come in and be the leader right away on the ice. Obviously he'll probably be the leader in the locker room alongside Jack Hughes and a couple of other players on that team. I think it's more so there. He's getting paid to be, a teacher to help guys progress in their career. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning process with this Tampa team to see how they're going to be able to adjust without Andre Palat.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's a situation where it almost feels like he might be a little bit more, for all the reasons you just said, he might be a little bit more valuable to a team like the Devils, being that veteran leader, than he is to a team like the Lightning, because the Lightning have just been such a machine over the last few years, and, they'll keep marching on just the way that they were. I did want to ask you, this is a case of, something really coming full circle here, kind of an under-the-radar signing for Tampa, but Vladislav Namestnikov, back with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, he was part of that ill-fated trade that the Rangers made with the Lightning, pretty much giving you guys JT Miller and Ryan McDonough for just about nothing. I mean, let's be real here. And Namestnikov, he gets traded. He played the one season with the Rangers, and I think it was like 2 games into the next year they traded him. Yeah. But he now goes back to Tampa Bay after bouncing around a little bit. Your thoughts on adding him? Looks like he might be on the third line to start the season.
Yeah. Vladdy, it was one of those things that was funny when you kind of see with this Lightning, no matter who, whether it was when it was Steve Yzerman or now Julian Brees-Boss, this Lightning team, they love, if they look at the free agent market and they don't really see anything they like, they'll go after a guy they know, and that's Vladimir Nemestikov. And so when the news broke that the Tampa Bay Lightning signed him, I kind of just laughed because it was just one of those things like, oh, of course, Vladimir Nemestikov, one of the last names you kind of would have expected, but it's like, no, that's too obvious of a move to make considering he was with this team before, and thus far he's played well, But of course, those are preseason games, so how much stock that you want to put into preseason is depending on who you are. For me, at least, I don't really look at it. I just look at those as throwaway games. That's kind of just a scrimmage to me. Guys just going out there, sticking puck, really nothing going on. I'll care more about what he does tonight against the Rangers and see how he's able to gel with his teammates. Yeah, and I think I think it's kind of a situation where you look at it and if he does well on that third line, I think it's mostly good because of what Ross Colton brings to the table. I think if Vladdy goes out there and has 50 points this season, I think that's perfectly fine in my book. If he goes out there and has somewhat of a mediocre season, I'm going to also say, well, you know what? That's what they kind of paid for. It's just kind of an extra body kind of situation out there. But I think Nemestikov's going to go out there. I think he's going to produce. And I think it's, once again, Julie Brees-Boss is going to look like a genius in this situation.
Sounds good, man. And got a similar question for you that, you just asked me a couple minutes ago here. But, any players on the Lightning that are kind of under the radar right now or that you're looking for to kind of take a jump this year? Or is there any prospect that you're excited about? Could be like a midseason call-up. Just anybody that, Ranger fans might not be that familiar with.
I have really been, and you might remember this from when we kind of spoke a little bit. He didn't get that much playing time in the playoffs, but Cal Foote playing on the first line this year, son of NHL player, former NHL player Adam Foote. Cal is one of those defensemen where I kind of compare him to a way of the early days of Keandre Miller. Just really big body, but I don't think they know how big they are on the ice. Just kind of a bull in a china shop kind of situation, very raw potential, but you do see what they could bring to the table once you kind of polish off all that raw stuff. And that's what Cal Foote is. He's going out there, he's still kind of learning the position, and he's going to be playing on that first line right now as it's projected alongside Victor Hedman. So, name a better player to learn from other than Victor Hedman right now when you're coming up in the first couple of seasons of your NHL career. I think Cal Foote is going to eventually evolve into one of those defensemen who could play both ways. He's got a booming slap shot when he does take it. He's not very trigger happy over the last couple of years. So hopefully, you kind of see him open up his game more to that. So Cal Foote 100% for me. I think if he could reach where I think he's capable of, in his potential, I think that first line for Tampa is going to be really deadly going forward.
Hearing you say that, it kind of makes me realize, and it's something that, I've been realizing more and more, the more that I watch hockey and the more these seasons go by here. When you're, a defenseman in this league, it can make all the difference in the world who your defense partner is. And I think a great example of that is, we talked about Miller a minute ago. He pretty much was with Jacob Trouba right from the start. Trouba's obviously a leader, big, tough, physical guy. He's now the Ranger captain, all that good stuff. And then, Nils Lundqvist, who never really clicked with the Rangers when he played with them last year, well, he was out there with Patrick Nemeth. So it's two very different situations. Yeah. And, I don't know if you agree, Adam, but I think that can go a long way toward, how somebody begins their NHL career is who you're out there, paired up with on defense.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people don't realize how complicated of a position being a defenseman is. Really, it's just you and one other guy out there controlling 200 feet of ice, being kind of the patrolman out there. And especially when you're out there with someone that you don't necessarily click with and you're a rookie or you're still relatively new to the league, that could cause problems for you. I mean, we've all seen it. I saw it numerous times throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, obviously, Mikhail Sergachev, to bring an example, he's a little bit more seasoned than obviously a Cal Foote, but being out there, not being on point, at certain times. We all know that the worst thing you could see, especially, is turning the puck over in your zone, and then it's a race down the other side to try and stop the goal. But that's why we have good goaltenders in our nets for our team. But yeah, so Cal Foote, I think he's one of those players that it's going to be interesting to see, because John Cooper is not shy about moving things around, especially, when Zach Bogosian does come back. Where is he going to fit into all this? And, obviously everything, and I know you wanted to talk about this just a little bit, but, everything that has happened in the last couple of days with Ian Cole, how much of a wrench does that throw into the Lightning's defensive plans? And really, as unfortunate as the situation is, it doesn't have catastrophic consequences for Tampa in terms of personnel changes. So, it's one of those things where, it's an unfortunate situation, but, it is what it is. We move on from it. And, now here's a chance for Hayden Fleury on that third line to really make the most of the opportunity that he has.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, regarding Ian Cole, I mean, the accusations, if they, if he did those things, I mean, it was nauseating to read that. And
Yeah.
I think it pretty much goes without saying that, if he is indeed guilty of any of those things, that he should be done in the NHL and probably have a lot of other even more worse things happen to him, in terms of, just what he did being reprehensible and illegal if he did it, and again, it's not a comfortable thing to talk about. It's tricky. We have to be careful how we word things at him with situations like this. But that was obviously a tough read. And it's just one of those things, man. You just don't expect to go on Twitter and see just, a random player like Ian Cole being accused of something so, heinous, frankly.
Yeah.
So, it's an unfortunate situation. But I think, like you said, from a hockey perspective, going from him to Hayden Fleury probably doesn't make that much of a difference for Tampa. I wouldn't think. I mean, I don't think that's a very significant drop off or anything like that. But as far as the Cole situation, I mean, I guess, like you said in yesterday's episode, we'll kind of just let the whole thing play out and see what happens here.
Yeah, it's. I also said on my episode, it's going to be an interesting moment for the NHL going forward. Everything that has been going on with racial issues in the league, and now we all are familiar with what happened with the Chicago Blackhawks last season, and now this season. It's going to be a little bit of a heat check moment for the National Hockey League, and what they're going to have to do, maybe whether it be venting players or having some sort of stricter code of conducts added in with the Players Association. Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, and we're just gonna have to sit by and watch and see what happens. And that's probably the worst part about it. And my hope for this, at least, John, is that it doesn't hang over the Lightning's head all season long. I hope the media understands that a lot of these guys, especially with Cole, it wasn't like Cole has been with the Lightning the last 5 years. He's a free agent signing this past summer. So if anything, I would say maybe the Blues or the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's what it kind of seems as though this happened during his time in Pittsburgh. Should be asked the bulk of those questions. So like I said on the show yesterday, right? I'm not going to really talk about it any further. Let's just talk about hockey. Let's talk about the guys that are in the dressing room, that are on the ice, and that's how we're going to handle it going forward.
No, I'm with you, man. The last thing that I'll say in the situation is just that, like, I actually feel for the Tampa Bay Lightning because they did this signing and they had no idea, presumably. So but I mean, I figure always a little bit of a jarring transition when you talk about something as heavy as that stuff. But we do have a game tonight, Adam. The first, I mean, I know the Predators and the Sharks played 2 games, but nobody even was aware of that. Middle of a day on a Friday, while the MLB playoffs are going on. So. The first primetime game here, and what an honor it is to Rangers and Lightning kicking off the season here. But any predictions for this game tonight as far as final score, who's going to score for the Lightning? Anything you can throw out there for me?
Well, last time I checked, I was looking at the lines last night, John, and I've been saying to myself the last couple of weeks, putting money on football. I have not won a single bet, and I was like, thank goodness, hockey season is right around the corner, and the over-under on this game is 5.5. So, the bookies are thinking this is going to be a high-scoring game. People are going to jump on Vazzy and Shesterkin relatively early. I think it's going to be a very close-knit game. If I had to guess, I'd probably be, that is the ballpark, but I think I'm going to take the under on that. I think I'm going to say, a 3-2 win for the Lightning. in the Garden, a little bit of a heartbreaker to start off the season for you guys. I think that you were going to see John Cooper roll out that star line between Point, Kucherov, and Stamkos a lot tonight, just to not only to get a lot of confidence in those guys, but just remind everybody a little bit, who you're talking about, because there are some people, very quickly, especially after the Lightning lost to the Avalanche, and the Avalanche won that series deservingly so. I'm not going to sit here and say that was a fluke or whatever, but when it comes down to it, the Lightning, they have something to prove this year. A lot of people are saying that the dynasty's over, and Steven Stamkos even said it in on media day. Listen, there's a lot left to be written in this book for the Tampa Bay Lightning, for this group. So I'm expecting them to go out there tonight, make a statement at one of the greatest arenas in the world against the New York Rangers, a team on the rise, against, I think, the best goalie, one of the best goalies in the league. I think he still has a little bit more to prove until we talk about him and Andrei Vasilevsky in the same conversation. But yeah, and overall, I think it's going to be a chippy game. I think that, there are some players on this Rangers team and this Tampa team who remember a lot of the big hits that were laid in that series last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some friction early on, especially in warmups between Patrick Maroon and Ryan Reeves. I think everybody's wishing for that anyway. What about you, John? Are you expecting a little bit more of the same, or do you think this is going to be a little bit more? Because I was talking to some Lightning fans before, and they were saying, we might see a little bit of a quiet first, a little bit in that, and then you start to see midway through the second, maybe things start to pick up. I think this is going to be a dogfight from the opening puck drop.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same final as you, but I got to pick my Rangers to, hold down the fort in Madison Square Garden tonight and win this one 3-2. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, obviously it's opening night. A lot of these guys are going to have a lot in the tank, and there's two world-class goalies going against each other. And for all the star power on these teams, and for as much as these teams can put the puck in the net, most of the games last year in the conference final were fairly low scoring. I mean, I know game one, the Rangers won like 6-2 or whatever it was, but after that, they were all pretty tight. And I think it's going to be more of the same in this one tonight. I think it's going to be, a tightly contested game. I can see a situation where, like, as far as like fireworks and chippiness and whatever you want to call it, I could see maybe the first period being kind of civil, but I get the feeling that, once the fuse is lit, you're going to see it pick up. All it's going to take is that one big hit, or that one player who makes a little bit of contact with the goalie, and then it's going to be off to the races after that. And you're going to get some pushing and shoving after pretty much every play. So, I'm very curious to see how it plays out, man. I think that, a lot of these players certainly remember what happened in the conference final last year. That got chippy at times as well. We saw Lafreniere and Stamkos dropping the gloves at the end of game 5, which two guys you don't really expect to see fight. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. It's very unpredictable, but I will say 3-2 Rangers. And give me Capo Caco scoring a goal for the Rangers tonight.
Okay, well, we'll have to we'll have to check back with you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On New York Rangers to see if you're correct, and hopefully, I'm talking on the episode of Locked On Lightning, talking about a Lightning 3-2 win, and all of you listening and watching on YouTube, go ahead and check in on that action. You could find out all the news up to the latest for the Lightning, Locked On Lightning on our YouTube channel, LO_Lightning on Twitter, Locked On_Lightning on Instagram. You could give me a follow at DankyDank, DENKYDANK on Twitter. Tweet to me, tweet to the show. Let us know what you think. Comment below in the YouTube, as well as what your predictions are for this video, whether it be on John's or our channels, both channels. Actually, make it both channels, or it doesn't count. And you could find John. Where can they find the show? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Twitter at JChick17, or you get the show's Twitter handle as well, at LO_NY_Rangers. And of course, we're on every audio platform you can think of, as well as YouTube. So definitely, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're a Lightning fan, come on and tell me how wrong I am about my predictions or anything like that. We like to have fun here. So yeah, definitely check us out.
Yeah, I don't have to tell Ranger fans to come talk to me. They'll find me. They'll find me. Yeah, they'll find me. So yeah, that's been it for this crossover episode. Thanks for joining us, and yeah, we'll talk later in the season as these two teams meet up once again at some point.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it.
And I just want to thank John Chik of Locked On Rangers for coming on once again. Always great to have him on. Had a lot of fun last postseason the Eastern Conference Finals, talking about the Rangers, and now we get to do it again as the Lightning take on the New York Rangers tonight at the Garden. So we will be back tomorrow to recap that game. Hopefully the Lightning come out, start the season on the good foot with a win. And let's build some momentum to start the season. And I think this season is going to be just as exciting, if not more, than some of the previous ones we've had since this show has started. So that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.